Gaming is a phenomenon that's been around quite a while. Only now are we starting to see the effects in the behavior of young people. Before the video game era, people had actual relationships with feelings of love and compassion. Today they have been replaced with a virtual relationship, in a virtual world where love and compassion is not needed. People start to erase the boundary between the real world and the virtual one. We won't just accept this change. In this video we are going to outline the real effects of gaming and how it's affecting our entire society, making its citizens hollow. This can't be the way of the future. This phenomenon needs to be brought to an end. The last couple of years there have occurred several school shootouts all over the world, but especially in the United States. One might ask oneself why these horrible events has taken place. What causes a man to commit these crimes? The statistics shows that almost all school shootouts have a link to extensive video gaming, according to former attorney Jack Thompson. Almost every person responsible for one of these acts has been addicted to video games. Whether or not video games are the main reason, it's hard to overlook the fact that they have a huge impact on the teenager's mind. The more you play, the more used to blood and murder you get, and suddenly blowing someone's head off doesn't seem so deterrent anymore. The younger you are, the more impressionable you are, and you don't really understand the consequences of your actions. Video games like Grand Theft Auto, where you run around and shoot innocent people without repercussions, can cause children to believe that this behavior can be applied to real life. Examples of this, according to the gaming site GameSpot.com, includes teenagers killing their families after parents taking away their copies of their video game. One problem is that games are so easily accessible, even though there are age restrictions. In most cases, children under the age restrictions are still able to buy the games without their parents knowing, or the shops even stopping them from buying it. There is a reason that games have these restrictions, and exposing young children to these games can lead to horrible consequences, as previously mentioned. Video games are of course not the only reason that these shootouts have taken place. Bullying, drugs, domestic violence are all big reasons. But where do these ideas come from? What makes young people consider these actions? Based on their violent nature, surely video games must be involved in some way.
So, what are the consequences of extensive video gaming? The genre called MMORPG, which stands for Massive Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game, includes games like World of Warcraft and EverQuest, and lies behind most of the cases regarding video game addiction. These types of games allows the player to escape from the real world and enter an alternative world of gaming. This, however, is not necessarily where the problem lies. Letting our fantasy take over while reading a book or playing a game is common and not at all harmful, as long as we can separate our imagination from the real life. For some people, this is not that simple, and this is where things can easily spiral. One gets carried away and loses the grip of reality. It begins with missing a meal or two, playing instead of doing homework, but it can soon become a fundamentally serious problem. There has been many different cases regarding this problem, some more severe than others. People explain how their personalities change while playing, and they actually become the avatar they are playing as. Lately, there has been a lot of attention surrounding the MMORPG called EverQuest. One of the more extreme cases is a woman who blames the game for causing her son to commit suicide. Her son had a history of mental problems, and she says that his obsession with the game EverQuest caused his acts. Some stories, though, has a happier ending, where the addiction was cured before it was too late. An example of this is Dennis Bennett. Dennis was failing his college classes, his marriage was in trouble, and he wasn't being much of a father to his 1-year-old son. but he had progressed to level 58 as Madrid, the great shaman of the north, his character in the online role-playing game EverQuest, and that was all that mattered at the time. He became an addict to the game, and it took over his life. He described it as follows: "The game almost ruined my life. It was my life. I ceased being me. I became Madrid, the great shaman of the north. Thinking of it now, I almost cringe. It's so sad." Dennis, however, was lucky. He was able to escape the world of gaming and recovered from the addiction. The first step towards a cure is to recognize a gaming addiction as a real problem, hence making clinics for gaming addicts. This could save people like the examples above from ruining their lives. That's why we at Anti-Gaming are trying to emphasize this as a real problem. But where do we draw the line between casual gaming and gaming addiction? To begin with, video games aren't necessarily always something bad, but if they're introduced to an individual that is easily affected, the results may be fatal. To understand where the problem lies, it's essential to first understand what defines gaming addiction. Essentially, being an addict means having a psychological disorder that affects the way the brain functions by impacting chemical processes related to motivation, decision-making, learning, inhibitory control, and pleasure-seeking, meaning creating an urge to the game strong enough to disrupt your daily life to such a degree as causing eating disorders, social problems, and general health issues, such as sleeping problems. Of course, games can be used responsibly, but even if you're not considered an addict, the games often has a major impact on your performance in your work or study area. But what is it that makes these games so alluring? It's all in the brain. When the gamer performs well in a game, he or she releases a neurochemical known as dopamine, which is a hormone with a function to make us feel good. This is all a natural process that occurs during eating, exercising, and listening to music as well. What determines the addiction is how much dopamine is released during the gaming time compared to in other daily activities. Since this type of addiction is becoming more common, a few institutes have been opened to deal with it, the first one in Amsterdam in 2006. However, the problem is still not acknowledged enough to be properly dealt with, which is why we at Anti-Gaming are taking a stand to fight this. Join us in our struggle. Join us in cleansing the internet from this phenomenon and returning it to its former glory and actual purpose.